To home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Tonight on Joy News Prime, at least 20 people, including a child, feared dead as 45 others are injured in yet another accident when two vehicles collided on the Tamale-Kintampo Road. Greater Accra Regional Hospital is struggling to keep a steady supply of oxygen due to the huge demand by COVID-19 patients and other cases on admission.
A situation where there is a shortage, maybe cylinder supply finishes before you have to install. If you have patients who are critical in that changeover period, you may lose the patient. And so when we have a situation of continuous supply, it's better than a situation of having.
In Parliament, some members who tested positive for COVID-19 are not isolating. They are still entering the Chamber of Parliament.
Members of Parliament who have in fact tested positive to the COVID are still coming to the chamber.
Mewa Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mubarak wants names of MPs who have tested positive communicated to the whips on both sides so they would be prevented from coming into Parliament.
Our medical director talks to the whip on their side those who have tested positive. So you assist, you keep the confidentiality, but you assist the members to stay out. Then you also know them as whip.
Meanwhile, Supreme Court unanimously rejects a request by John Mahama's lawyers to be allowed to inspect documents in the custody of the Electoral Commission. And in business, Ghana at risk of potentially disastrous earthquake. More from the newly elected president of the Federation of African Engineering Organizations, who's called for a retrospect of all old structures in the country.
Exposed to a potentially disastrous earthquake. Now, an earthquake will be disastrous depending on how prepared our buildings are.
My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Joy News Prime comes to you live from our studios in Kokomlemle here in Accra on your digital terrestrial TV because we are free to air on Go TV channel 144 and DSTV channel 421. Let's start from Parliament because some members of Parliament, although having tested positive for COVID-19, are still attending to Parliament and entering the chamber. This is according to First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Osei-Owusu. Speaking on the floor of the House Wednesday, the Bekwai MP noted the Speaker is directing that those MPs desist from entering the chamber. The First Deputy Speaker also noted more than 50 MPs have still not subjected themselves to the COVID-19 test. Last week, Speaker Alban Bagbin threatened that if the MPs do not avail themselves to be tested, he will mention their names. This threat is yet to be carried through.
Thus far, about 50 members of Parliament and staff have not submitted to the test. I'm please requesting any member or any staff who has not submitted to the test to please do so immediately. Secondly, Mr. Speaker wishes me to draw the attention of members to the House that some members of Parliament who have in fact tested positive to the COVID are still coming to the chamber. The Speaker wishes me to inform that if those members do not withdraw and isolate, he will be forced to publish the names of members who have tested positive in order to warn the rest of us. Please, let's take this protocol seriously and let all members who have been informed of their test results that they have tested positive withdraw from the precincts of Parliament, not just the chamber. Stay home and self-isolate, go through the protocols and recover before they return to the House.
Minority Chief Muntaka Mubarak is suggesting that the names of those who have tested positive be communicated to whips on both sides so they would be prevented from coming into the House.
It's important that we don't abandon a procedure that has served us well in the past. Mr. Speaker, what is it? After the test, our medical director talks to the whips on their side those who have tested positive. So you assist, you keep the confidentiality, but you assist the members to stay away. You also know them as whip to help them stay away. Without necessarily telling, for example, Honorable Anodon, who is the whip for majority, the members on the minority, or telling me, Muntaka, the members on the majority, but members on my side, I need to know so that I can help the House ensure that these members are not only in the chamber, but they are also not in their offices. So I hope that this will be done. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, all of us, those who have taken the test, even where it is negative, it is important that that report, that sheet is given to every member. You just don't keep quiet and tell me that if I'm not called, that means I'm negative. If it is only when you are positive that you be called. No. The result of the report, the test, must be issued to every member so that I can know that, but if they call me, I didn't pick. And yet they keep calling me and I'm not picking. Give me, as Muntaka, the results of my test, negative, so that I can keep it. But not to keep it to yourself and say that if you don't receive a call, that means you are negative. If you receive a call, then you are positive. But if I don't pick my call, I believe that if we streamline this, it will help not only the whips, but it will help the whole House.
On a spot, Majority Leader Seche Mensah-Bonsu supported the idea of mentioning the names of MPs who have not taken the test and warned that from next week, all MPs who do not subject themselves to the test will not be allowed into the chamber.
I do know for a fact that a couple of us have submitted at some private institutions, some private health facilities. I'm not too sure of the number. But I do know of at least 3 who have shown their test results to me. That still will not exonerate the remaining 52. Mr. Speaker, it's important that we submit ourselves. They were to leave at 3, and I've pleaded with them to stay up to 4:30, and they said to me that they can only stay up to 4. I'll plead with members, those who have not yet submitted themselves, to please exit to go and submit themselves. Many of the staff have also not submitted themselves. And some of the journalists with us have also not submitted themselves. Let me plead with everybody here, staff, members of parliament, and journalists who have not, please submit yourselves. And as the Speaker said to us, if you don't, in all likelihood, from next week, as the Speaker insisted, we will not allow people who have not submitted to be in the chamber.
Interesting events in Parliament. Send in your comments onto our Facebook page, and those comments will be read later in this bulletin. But still on COVID-19, doctors at the COVID-19 Treatment Center of the Greater Accra Regional Hospital at Ridge are warning that the case management at the facility may be compromised if a dedicated oxygen supply point is not provided immediately to the COVID-19 ICU there. Though the main Ridge Hospital has a dedicated oxygen plant, supply is yet to be extended to the COVID-19 treatment center. So far, 19 people have succumbed to the virus at the facility in 2021 alone, with all 16 beds currently occupied. Joy News' Manuel Cranting was at the hospital earlier today and now reports.
A visit to the Greater Accra Regional Hospital at Ridge Wednesday morning will reveal all 16 beds at the COVID-19 ICU there are occupied. Management of the facility had in September 2020 expanded its 8-bed COVID-19 treatment center into a 16-bed ICU. According to Medical Director of the hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Sorpeño, this intervention has not been enough as the latest spike in the country's active cases has put pressure on the facility.
I must say that we opened the new phase of the ICU around September last year, but the place has been relatively quiet. We did not have the numbers until the beginning of this year when we begin to have very high volumes of cases. The strange thing or the interesting thing is that very critically ill patients in very high numbers. We started the place with 8-bed ICU, but we have had to expand it to 16-bed ICU currently.
With the increasing number of severe and critical cases being reported at the facility comes a growing demand for oxygen and usage of mechanical ventilators. But delivering on this demand is being threatened by the lack of a dedicated source of oxygen to the ICU.
And as we are talking now, all these 16-bed ICU beds are occupied. And one of the critical needs of patients like this is oxygen support. So they have to depend on high volumes of oxygen. As the technical people have said earlier on, very critically ill patients need about 15 liters of oxygen a minute. So you can imagine just every minute they need about 15 liters. So that means that in 4 minutes, they need about 16 liters of oxygen, So this is a high volume. So the where we have the ICU located, it's not connected to the main block. And so we had a situation where we have to buy oxygen in big cylinders to give to them.
Lead on the COVID-19 treatment at the Ridge Hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Ahiamble, explains to me how the facility is operating under the current arrangement.
This is the manifold, where we have about 10 oxygen cylinders, which are connected to the ICU. So the way they are, when the oxygen cylinders are empty, somebody needs to come and reconnect them. So now there are 10 of them. So it runs in series. One finishes, then it moves to the other one, to the 10. When the 10 are finishing, then someone has to come and change. So that's what we are experiencing. Sometimes, like I said, there could be interruption to finish, and the person comes to change may not be there on time. So it means those who are in the ICU may not get oxygen immediately.
But as doctors here improvise to continue providing uninterrupted care to patients on admission, Dr. Sorpeño says this could portend a real danger for case management.
Normally we buy oxygen before, when we buy oxygen about 25,000, it lasts for some time. But now 2 to 3 days it's finished because some of the patients have become oxygen dependent and they are consuming high volumes of oxygen. So we have gotten to a situation where we are spending a large part of our internally generated resource on purchasing this oxygen. So we've now realized that our oxygen plant, we have a plant, so the oxygen plant can be connected to the ICU block so that instead of buying oxygen in cylinders, we can just connect that plant to the block and have free flow of oxygen in 24 hours. The other danger in relying on oxygen cylinders is that when you have a situation where there is a shortage, maybe cylinder supply finishes before you have to install. If you have patients who are critically ill, in that changeover period, you may lose a patient. And so when we have a situation of continuous supply, it's better than a situation of having to rely on oxygen cylinders.
Till the oxygen plant is connected directly to the ICU, doctors here will have to risk dealing with the current arrangement. Manuel Kranting, Joy News, Accra.
Meanwhile, an 8-month-old baby has tested positive for COVID-19 at the Tamale Teaching Hospital in the northern region. The region currently has 100 active cases and 80 recovery cases. 4 deaths have also been recorded. Joy News understands the Public Health Laboratory has recorded 41 new cases, which are yet to be added to the national figure. Deputy Northern Region Public Health Director Dr. Hilarious Abiu has been speaking with my colleague Gifty Andopia.
I think the observation is that the disease doesn't seem to have a major impact on children. It is not so much about whether children are getting infected or not.
Okay.
The problem is that in doing the COVID testing, especially at the beginning, you needed to take what you call the samples from the nose and throat. And that can be very traumatic for newborns and, you know, the very young in age. So a lot of the testing was not being done in that age group. And that would explain why perhaps we were not getting results or reported numbers in those cases, except where the index of suspicion is very high. For instance, you have a mother who is breastfeeding and is positive, picked up positive, the parents are all positive. Then at that point, you would want to go and test the baby. Okay. But routinely, you don't want to run up babies and start taking their samples. And that may explain why we didn't see numbers in terms of infections for these children. Okay. But what is also true is a majority of these young ones who get infected don't seem to have any major problems, the severe form of the disease, and that's the good news. Okay, so the 8-month-old we're talking about, I mean, it was uneventful, except for the fact that it was registered as positive. The results that came in today also recorded a 1-year-old boy. And again, the stories are essentially the same. Parents are positive, you want to check the child to see what the situation is, not necessarily because the children are ill.
And so to come in this bulletin, at least 20 people are dead after a bus in which they were traveling collided. There is more on Joy News Prime after this break. Welcome back to Joy News Prime. To the rest of our stories, at least 20 people are dead after a bus in which they were traveling collided with another in the Tamale Kintampo Road. About 45 others are said to have sustained various degrees of injuries in a head-on collision involving 2 buses at Sarechukura, a farming community near Fufulso in the Savannah region. All bodies, including the drivers from both vehicles, 12 male and 4 female, including a child, have been deposited at the Bwepe Polyclinic mortuary. An eyewitness, Amina Isahako, recounted what happened.
All we could hear was a bang sound when the buses collided. We were traveling from Kumasi to Garu.
Now, was it within the same? Amina, bueno, and then bueno,
the mother of these 2 children has been killed. Some of us are lucky to survive.
Meanwhile, the 45 injured persons are currently receiving treatment at the Bwepe Polyclinic. Acting Public Relations Officer of the Savannah Regional Police Command, Owusu Ejekum, blamed the incident on fatigue. Joining me via Zoom is the Northern and Savannah Region's Road Safety Director, Alexander Ayata. I'm grateful for your time. What is the current update on the accident?
Good evening, Madam, and thank you for the opportunity. As of now, I want to believe that we are all aware of what happened this morning around 12:46 between 12 to 12:46 thereabout a.m. Yes, the current situation as I've just gotten there to gather the information was that, of course, when the accident occurred, there was a bus, G32. All the buses they belong to G32, from Kumasi to Garu, then from Zeple to Kumasi. And the one, like you said, the one coming from Kumasi actually veered off. And from what I have gathered from some of the passengers, those that had minor injuries, was that their driver appeared to be sleeping and slept off, and that was what happened. So this evening, at the point of the accident, 16 died. When I got the information, the description, and everything that was done there by the fire service, who were the first to be called. And after, when they were conveyed to the various clinics and hospitals, later on, one died, adding 17. Then, when later on in the course of the day, one also died at Holistic Clinic. No, let me call it hospital at Buki, when I just arrived there, making it 18. Then, of course, before I left, I got the wind that others about two died later, a child. So the information is not conclusive, and I'm expecting that by the end of the season or the time, we would have done the proper investigation to arrive at the actual number, because I'm hearing 20 for now, but I don't want to believe so, because earlier on, what I heard was that 45 were injured. But when I got to the scene and watched and observed and got the figures from the people who were there, it was 60 injuries. And the two buses contained 108 persons. 16 died on the spot. So this one, it means that, of course, we need to do holistic and detailed investigation so that we can arrive at exactly the number that died and the number that got injured and the number that has, serious and minor injury. So for now, what I can say is that we need to get on board. I think within a week or so, we'll come out with a real figure so that together we can see the way forward. Now, what is interesting to note is that of late, my observation for about 4 years and working with the team, the stakeholders, the police, the fire service, and then, of course, the ambulance service, we have noticed that it is because of the long distance driving, particularly Upper East. When they're coming from Boku, Zebila, Garu, you hear, of course, recently about two weeks ago, you would have heard about an accident that occurred at Nansia, where 7 people died. The long distance vehicles, in fact, because of lack of rest after every 4 hours of drive is the cause of it. And also, I am told that the drivers, they delay and taking off in the night because of the luggage, where they are getting their resources from, their money from. So they will intentionally delay and leave late in the night. And late in the night, naturally, everybody is about to sleep. And when they sleep, it means that you will definitely will sleep. So we are now looking at the way forward to get 2 drivers, so that one can be at least awake. When the other is tired, then of course one will take over. So for now, what I have observed and studied and my figures show that we need to do a critical investigation to analyze the data and to come out with exactly the number of people who died, female, or of course, that includes what? The smaller ones, the young ones, children. So I am told even 3 children died. 2 female, 1 male. And
hello there, welcome to Business. I'm Charles Aitib. UK companies are threatening to move their business to other countries as Ghana and Britain have failed to reach a trade agreement post-Brexit. So far, banana farmers have already lost 20% of their business, and threats are that by next week, they will lose 70% of that. The 3 leading banana exporters indicate that this could result in massive layoffs. Corporate Affairs and Administration Officer of Golden Exotics, George Kponye, was speaking to Joy Business.
The question How's this affecting your business?
So this obviously is not sustainable. Our buyer is getting extremely concerned that if this problem is not resolved very quickly, from next week he intends to divert a large portion of our supply to another country who already have been able to secure an agreement with the UK. So that would mean that we'll lose a substantial part of our business.
In percentage term, that's about?
From what he is saying, so far he's only threatening to take 30%, but that can quickly translate into larger volumes. And about 50% of our total production goes to the UK. So that's a significant part of our business. The problem is that if they become comfortable with this new source, chances are that they may not come back, even when the situation is resolved.
Now, the three companies, Golden Exotics, Volta River Estates, as well as Blue Skies, together employ 5,000 workers directly and about 25,000 indirectly. Meanwhile, Antipatient, who has been in the banana industry for 19 years, fears her life will be hopeless should Ghana lose out on exporting to the UK.
If you wake up one day and there's no Golden Exotics, what will happen to you and your family?
There is no life.
Wow.
So you can't stay without working. Even God inside, if you don't work, don't eat. So without work, I don't think you become useless.
Wow.
Ghana is on the verge of a potentially disastrous earthquake. This is a warning from the president of the Federation of African Engineering Organizations, Carlian Bushtet. She tells Joy Business the country has made no preparations to withstand the shocks of any earthquake, considering the old and poor state of various structures across the country. She's been speaking exclusively to Joy Business.
We are exposed to a potentially disastrous earthquake. Now, an earthquake will be disastrous depending on how prepared our buildings are. So the question, how prepared are we? I would say we are not very prepared simply because we have a lot of buildings already in existence, and many of which were not constructed in a manner that would ensure that they can resist a disastrous earthquake. Let me add that the knowledge of how to build to withstand earthquakes is fairly new. The kinds of earthquake we expect to happen in Ghana, we expect a maximum of around 7 or so. And in other countries, they've had earthquakes of 7 points, bigger than 7, and nothing has been destroyed. That's because most of the buildings have been built properly. So now what we need to do is to ensure that all new buildings are following a proper code, and to look at the old buildings and start to retrofit the old buildings. And that's what we need to be doing.
Still on that, in 2019, you chaired a government committee on issues regarding Ghana's earthquake hazard, risk assessment. And I want to just use the determinants talking about Ghana's earthquake preparedness and response. What is the state of this currently? Throwing back to what you did in 2019.
Okay. We are a little better prepared than we were at that time.
Okay.
Let me say, COVID has helped in that regard, because some of the recommendations that we made at the time was that we needed to have health facilities that were not just concentrated in Accra, but were all over the country. And I believe because of the pandemic, that is one of the decisions that the government has made.
That was Carlian Bushtet, president of the Federation of African Engineering Organizations. That's how we end business for this segment. Sport is up next.
After the business comes the sport, and I'm Gary Alsmith. Thank you for your time. In the Ghana Premier League, First of all, Parkwesi Fabian is complaining about poor officiating as a Diana Stars draw 0-0 with Liberty. We'll get that now.
We scored a perfect goal. The ball hit the net before it came. The referee was right on the spot. And he was looking at the linesman. Oh, amazing. Amazing. Well, I might say it was an average performance. But then, getting to the end, we were now finding our rhythm. And then we got a perfect goal. Yeah. strangely, the referees didn't whistle for it. I'm shocked.
So, David Oklu, his opposite number, also bemoaned his team's inability to convert a goal-scoring chance against Adriana Stars.
The boys fought gallantly, but it's unfortunate we couldn't convert the chances that came our way. Yeah, they played well. They played to our pattern. The strategy we came in with worked perfectly, but it's unfortunate. The needed thing is not done. That's the only goal. That is eluding us.
So that game was at Dansoma, not far off at the Accra Stadium. Asante Kotoko are playing at home against Inter Allies, and it's currently 1-0 in favor of Kotoko. Nabi Keita, the man in your short, scored about 3 minutes ago through a penalty. We'll bring you updates of that. By the time we are back with the second part of the sport, it'll be full time, and then we'll let you know what's up with that one. Anyway, in terms of results and fixtures, let's have a look. Ghana Premier League starts today. Brekum Chelsea beat Bechem United by 2-0. Liberty 0-0 Adriana. Dwarfs 1-2-1 against Ashgold. This is the first time in 66 days that Dwarfs have won in Cape Coast. Dreams beat Wafa 3-0. And this is after Wafa beat, of course, who was it, by 5-0 at the weekend. Liberty 5-0. 11 Wonders drew 0-0 with Elmina Sharks. And, of course, yesterday, Olympics won 3-1 against King Faisal. So, before the Kotoko game ends, this is how the Premier League table looks like. Karela on top, Olympics second, Bechem third, Wafa, Adriana, Dreams, Ashgold, Kotoko, and Hearts of Oak. If Kotoko win this one, they would go into the top 4, obviously. Elmina Sharks are 10th, Dwarfs 11th, Mediama 11 Wonders, Brekum Chelsea followed to 14th, Legon Cities, Liberty, Ken Faisal, and Inter Allies, so at bottom of the league in that order. Let's go quickly to Twitter, get some new news that was coming in before I came into the studio. And Kodwa Samoa finally gets a club. He has signed for Cagliari. Cagliari, of course, are based in Sardinia. And so we can take a look at some of the pictures. This is on our Twitter feed. He gets a club. Remember, he terminated his deal with Inter Milan last year. So they couldn't see eye to eye on the terms and all that. So Kodwa Samoa gets a club, and he's going to play for the Sardinians. That's it for the sport for the moment. I'll be back on the other side of 8 with more. Thank you for your time.
Time now for Showbiz. Becky is here with the very latest. Hello.
Hello to you, Aisha. Good evening.
How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Beautiful hair. And today you look like a Kuma super. I mean, you've...
I like the way you treat me on the show. Like, I feel like a queen already. The queen that I am.
Okay.
But there's a queen coming all the way from South Africa. She's called Nadia. She's actually a rapper. She's in Ghana. I mean, I'm very excited about this particular lady because she came to Ghana to shoot a music video. Our people, they go to South Africa to shoot a music video.
So draw, Anna.
No, No, but I'm excited that people are patronizing Ghana.
Oh, why is it that you don't expect that Ghana could attract anybody?
Well, it's because mostly people go all the way to.
But I think Nadia, whoever she is.
Yeah,
shout outs to Nadia
and shout outs to her because she is also here in Ghana. She's looking for more collaborations. So if you don't know who I'm talking about, Nadia.
I've got a song out at the moment called Practice featuring international artist Vic Mensa, who signed to Rock Nation, and he's Ghanaian. So he came to Ghana to obviously come back home, and it made the most sense to shoot here, not only because it's close, but because I've never been, and I thought it would be amazing to shoot him in his country as well, because not a lot of people know that he's from here. And yeah, so that was the main narrative of why I am in Ghana. But Ghana had always been a place that I wanted to come and work with the artists here, kind of create a network, because I want to be able to have a fan base and be able to cultivate different fan bases in different African countries. So Ghana was always on the wish list. Okay. So I'd love to work with, I always get it mixed up, but Kwesi Arthur. Okay. Sorry, Kwesi Arthur. Joey B.
Okay.
Obviously Sakurie. That would be amazing. Yeah. Stormboy. I met Stormboy in South Africa and we've been communicating, but right now he's in Jamaica, so we kind of just missed each other. But I think we'll work together and send songs the way that you send over digital. And I know you guys have an African rap king called Eno.
Yes.
Am I pronouncing it right?
Eno. Yes.
Eno.
Yeah.
I definitely would like to work with her. She's such a vibe.
Okay.
Oh, okay. And Kitty. So Kitty also is someone I exposed to. And I haven't worked with the type of artist that he is. He's very vocal. He's a singer, and I've worked with a lot of African rap artists, and I think his sound would really do well with mine. And also the project that I'm working on right now, I haven't quite decided if it's an album or an EP, but I wanted to have dominantly African features. I really want to work on artists that I feel like are, obviously you want to work with artists that are big, but I also want to work with artists that I know are about to strike gold. They're knocking on the door of stardom. And I think Kitty is one of those artists that is about to be the next big thing out of Ghana.
Okay.
If you want to hear more about Nadia, just log on to my johnline.com entertainment page. But
we're going all the way to South Africa.
I'm telling. Well, I spoke to her. I told Mash to tell her that you're a rapper as well,
so she can do some collabo with me. Yeah, sure.
Do you want to give us a freestyle?
Not now. You want me to let the cat out of the bag?
Okay, we'll do that later. But E-Vibes, Mr. P, all the way from Nigeria, came to Ghana.
Okay.
And I had a very intensive conversation with Mr. P. I'm very, particular about the intensive. And
it was that intense.
I'm telling you, this guy, he says that, Ghanaians must try as much as possible to appreciate their own, because that's the only way you can grow.
And that's the thing I love about Nigeria.
Yeah, the support. Really I support you all the time.
Of course.
So everybody go out there and support the show. It's on Saturday. The entire conversation is on Saturday.
Before the award-winning news file.
Co-award winning.
You're a co-awardee. I know that. Yeah. Congratulations once again, Becky.
Thank you so much. Something you should shout out. Send me shout out when you're doing, so that is actually the president.
Becky, thank you so much for bringing us showbiz.
Watch E-Vibes on Joy News and on Joy Prime. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Becky. We're bringing you world news shortly. Welcome back to Joy News Prime. Let's head straight to the Supreme Court, because the Apex Court on Wednesday, in a unanimous decision, turned down a request by the 2020 NDC presidential candidate John Dramani Mahama to be allowed to inspect documents in the custody of the Electoral Commission. These are documents relied upon by the EC to announce the results of the presidential elections. Lead counsel for Mr. Mahama, Chacho Chikata, had argued that access to the documents, including the original constituency presidential collation form and the summary sheets, will ensure a fair determination of the case. Court correspondent Joseph Akablay has more.
Proceedings on Wednesday centered mainly on the request to have
some documents inspected. These are documents that are in the custody of the Electoral Commission. Our lawyers on the various sides, starting from Mr. Mohammed's legal team, advanced arguments in support of their request to inspect those documents. They insisted that in the course of the trial, it has been established that there are instances of different pink sheets for the same areas, and so they wanted to inspect the original documents. But lawyers for the Electoral Commission and President Akufo-Addo did indicate that as far as they are concerned, these are documents that are in the custody of the petitioner, and so the court should not grant the request. The court listened to the legal arguments and ruled that a case for the grant of the request has not been made. So here's a wrap of the legal arguments in support of the request and the decision of the court as well.
Because we are saying effectively that this access to these documents is required for a fair hearing in this case, because it is not within the province of the first respondent just to pick and choose numbers from different sheets in the way they sought to do in cross-examining on Exhibit D. It's not within their province just to pick and choose and say, oh, this document which you have, it didn't include Ayen Suanu. There's nothing on the face of the document which says Ayen Suanu is there or not there. Nothing.
I do not believe that it has been the practice of our courts that evidence is led in piecemeal. Evidence cannot be led in piecemeal before the High Court, how much more the Supreme Court. So, my lords, it is our submission that for these grounds, and of course, they bear the burden of proof to provide evidence sufficiently for the burden to shift. They have it, and having failed to do that, they cannot, at this late hour, come and make this application for documents which the witnesses themselves admit are in their possession. That is our submission, my lords.
I'm saying, my lords, with all due respect, that the applications seeks to use the right to fair hearing to conjure away the burden of proof and the burden of persuasion. These are very fundamental issues in a trial process. He cannot shift the burden of proof when he has not led any evidence which compels us to lead evidence in response. He has not adduced any evidence, much more met the burden of proof. That is all the time on him. So, my lords, if this is the reason for his application, my lords, it is a misconceived application. My lords, what makes it worse, my lords, is that he has not met the basic conditions set out in Order 21, Rule 11.
The press release of 10th December 2020 and the answer and witness statement of the first respondent are issues of evidence and do not give cause for discovery of the documents under consideration. From the above reasons, the application is dismissed.
The two legal teams have been speaking to the press after proceedings.
We are of the view that the pendulum swings back to the petitioner, who had advertised that he has 5 witnesses who will give evidence to show that nobody got 50%. We've heard the first 2. The jury is out on that one. If there are 3 other witnesses, now will be the good time for them to either submit those witnesses to adduce this evidence that shows they are supporters that they told they had won and then they came to change the story, but that will show them that indeed nobody won. Or if they are not able to put further witnesses before the court, then they would have to bring down their case, and then the respondents will also have to now move to their next line of action. We think it's generally been a good day in court for justice, and we look forward to the directions of the court on Friday.
Unfortunately, the Supreme Court did not agree with our request. It refused our application on the grounds that these are documents that are in our custody. But, well, the Supreme Court has ruled. There's not much we can do, but we disagree with the fact that all these documents are said to be in our custody, and therefore we are not entitled to it. You heard the two witnesses that have testified so far. Both of them, for example, have said the Form 13. They have never seen or signed the Form 13. And that is at least one document that we don't have in our custody, the most important document of all. We've never seen it.
Hearing of the case continues on Friday, but it is not clear what the business of the day will be. This is because at the close of proceedings, Mr. Chikata had indicated that he had wanted to have interactions with the justices in chambers related to another witness that they were bringing in. And so they went into chambers, and when they came back, the court adjourned proceedings without indicating what the nature of that request was and what form it should take. But this is the situation here. Hearing will be on Friday, and we'll bring you the very latest on Joy News. My name is Joseph Akable.
And my name is Aisha Ibrahim. NDC Member of Parliament for Boem constituency Kofi Adams is alleging that licensed buying companies in the cocoa sector are buying cocoa from farmers without paying. According to Kofi Adams, this is due to the failure of government through Cocoa Board to pay the LBCs, who in turn will pay ordinary cocoa farmers they do business with. Kofi Adams is urging government to immediately release funds to the LBCs to pay the farmers. Kofi Adams insists that although Cocoa Board has drawn down the cocoa syndicated loan, it has not paid LBCs.
Cocoa farmers who toil to cultivate their farms, harvest the cocoa produce, process it, and sell to LBCs expect to be paid so they can use such funds to take care of their families and also create new farms in order to increase their acreage or size of farmlands. Unfortunately, for some time now, when they sell these cocoa beans to LBCs, they don't get paid. And it has become a matter of importance that we thought we needed to bring it to this august house, since this house was the one that approved the 1.3 billion syndicated facility for Cocoa Board to enable them purchase these cocoa beans. And so if farmers in our constituencies are not being paid, it's important that we bring this matter to the attention of the country so a decision is taken as far as a solution is concerned in this problem. We presented a statement, members made contributions. At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker ruled and directed that Cocoa Board would have to meet the entire House or the Committee of Whole and brief us as to how to resolve these problems and to make sure that it doesn't occur again. So we will be waiting for leadership to arrange that meeting, and we'll see when Cocoa Board will be in the House to address us on this very important matter that affects the farmers. My biggest concern is that in this era of COVID, that a lot of economic situations has not been the best for many farmers. We don't have to add this pressure on them, that they work, sell their cocoa beans, and they don't get paid for their toil. So we thank you. Let this message get out there so that our farmers will know that we are not quiet on their issues.
But in a sharp rebuttal, Deputy Majority Leader Alexander Afenyo-Markin says the claim is not factual and is challenging Kofi Adams to mention a single LBC which has not been paid. According to MP Fuefutu, the LBCs as at the end of January had all been paid, and read a Cocoa Board statement to back that.
This argument by our colleague is most inaccurate. It is not factual. He is suggesting that Cocoa Board, after receiving syndicated loan facility, after drawing down, has refused to pay LBCs. We have challenged Honorable Kofi Adams and all those who spoke after him by way of comment or contributions on the statement from his side to give us one LBC. LBC is not a state-owned enterprise. It's a private enterprise owned by Ghanaians or foreigners. They should tell us which LBC is alleging that Cocoa Board has refused to pay for invoices submitted. He makes a general statement.
that the House should get Cocoa Board to pay LBCs. We are challenging him that the Western North he cited, Buem he cited, he should let us know which LBC. He has not been able to do so. He's granted interview to you. He has refused to give you a single LBC that is making such an allegation against Cocoa Board. On that strength, we submit that whatever that Mr. Adams read on the House floor is factually inaccurate. And we back it with facts. Cocoa Board has issued a statement by its communication directorate where it makes clear that all LBCs have been given their seed capital for the purchase of cocoa. Now, your colleague is asking for dates. This statement today is the 3rd of February. The statement is saying that as of January, Cocoa Board does not owe all invoices submitted to it. And in fact, Cocoa Board has gone further to say, in response to Honorable Eric Opoku, that no single LBC, foreign-owned LBC, is owed.
Stalled for 12 years, city authorities are breathing life into the Kofrom market, a suburb of Kumasi. This is because government and Asantehene have facilitated a loan agreement of 81 million cedis to complete the Kofrom market. Authorities say the project is scheduled for completion in 9 months. Traders who were relocated during the start of the market reconstruction are happy with the Asantehene's involvement. Prince Apia has been speaking to stakeholders and has filed this report. We'll bring you the Kofrom story in a bit, but as the nation awaits for the arrival of a vaccine in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, it may not be just the vaccine, but the vaccination as the Ghanaians are to brace up for their bodies to change forever in the process of vaccination. That's according to the Director General of the Ghana Standards Authority, Professor Alex Dodu. Speaking with Kojo Yangsing on the Super Morning Show and also with Daniel Dazi on Joy Prime Morning, Professor Dodu said the complex nature of vaccines is the reason a carefully thought out preparation is required.
We normally tend to look at vaccines, when people get disease from viruses or bacteria, the question to ask is, how do you protect yourself? Traditionally, you get a disease, if you don't die, your body remembers the disease. Okay. And next time you get a disease, your body fights it. Okay. They call it natural protection, natural immunity. So you go to war. If you don't die, you can go to war again and win. However, that is inefficient because a lot of people can die. So scientists take a bit of the thing causing the problem, the virus or the bacteria, give it to you so that you get small of the disease, very, very minor. And then your body learns to fight against the disease on its own. And then next time you get a disease, your body will fight it naturally. That is the whole concept of vaccination. And it gets emotional because you give vaccines to people who are healthy. Okay. So that they don't get sick. And for vaccines, typically you also add something to, quote unquote, make it hotter. We call them adjuvants. You add something to, the vaccine is a small amount of protein. And you don't want to give too much. So you add some other ingredients, call them, you mix it, you got the fish, but you need to add some salt and pepper too, to make the soup nice. And that makes it hotter, and makes it more reactive, more reactogenic. So it helps you get the reactions quickly without getting too much of the bad part of the vaccine, that's in the antigen or what is causing the disease. Okay. Now, how do we know? Believe it or not, you give a dose and you look at the response. So you are looking at the most effective dose, which will give you the biggest response so that you don't give an overdose. So even with vaccines, in preparing it, you do that. Secondly, you notice that vaccine administration is interesting because you give a little bit and then sometimes you wait for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 13 weeks, and you give the second one. So you give small for the body to start warming up.
Okay.
Then you give a bigger one for the body to know that, yes, now I'm there.
I see.
No, so it's all planned and it's rolled out. But believe you me, vaccines are the most careful thing we take about when we prepare them. Because once a vaccine goes into your body, it changes your body forever.
Wow.
Yep. And because you give vaccines to people who are healthy, your level of risk, or rather your preparation to prevent problems, should be higher. Normal medicines like paracetamol is given to you when you are sick. So you take it and you get well. With vaccine, you are well and you don't want to get sick and you take it. So you get confused. Why should I take something when I'm well and it gives me rashes or headache? You know, it's difficult to accept. But it's like buying insurance. With vaccination, you are buying insurance to protect against future disease and to keep you safe. There's no vaccine on earth which doesn't have side effects. The question is, how big is the side effects, and is it acceptable for what you are protecting?
And perhaps, how does it even compare to what you're protecting the person against?
So when we started looking at safety to formalize it, what we said was that the benefits should always be bigger than the risks. The public needs to know that vaccines represent something that has proven to work and be beneficial. Because of vaccines, now you don't have smallpox. Because of vaccines.
That was Professor Alex Dodu speaking to my colleague Gifty Ando-Apia on Joy Prime Morning. He says government must endeavor to develop a communication plan which will dispel misconceptions about vaccines.
How do you convince people to take vaccines? When there's no disease, nobody wants to take vaccine. But when there's a disease, they come. So there is community hesitancy. In vaccination, there's a key thing called trust. You know, the public all over the world feel like, look, governments don't give us everything. Then all of a sudden, something free. Conspiracy theories, they abound everywhere. Europe, America, Ghana. In our own population, the challenge we have is how do you communicate uncertainty? And let me say it slowly. How do you communicate uncertainty? There's a lot we know about vaccines and COVID vaccines. There's a lot we do not know. So it's a communication which requires trust both ways, but a lot of transparency. What I love is the way His Excellency the President gave his speech on Sunday. He said we would use vaccines which have been approved by a regulator, that's the FDA. What goes into it is a lot of discussion with all scientists in Ghana who have something to offer and who are invited. Then he didn't make the point that we'll make sure we have the systems to monitor those vaccines. And our belief is that just like we have done in other areas, the reportage of adverse events, or what we call pharmacovigilance or vaccine pharmacovigilance, will be transparent and open, where you update the public regularly on what is happening. Now the public needs to be made to believe that the fact that you take a vaccine doesn't make you superhuman.
So which category of people is exempt from taking the vaccines? Listen to Professor Alex Dodu explain.
There's no information that it is harmful in pregnant women. However, we just don't know. So there is always what you don't know, and the guidance is don't take it if you are pregnant, unless you have a condition where if you get a disease, it gets complicated.
So as we speak now, when should the vaccinations start, pregnant women will not be a part of those who will be vaccinated?
Rule of thumb, you don't want to worry the next generation. You usually will not give anything to a pregnant woman unless the benefits are more than the risk. So it's very unlikely for pregnant women to be among the people who will be vaccinated unless they have very severe underlying conditions, in which case the benefits to them may far outweigh the risk.
If that's the case, how soon will we know whether or not it will be okay for pregnant women to take it? Or is that indefinite? Excluding them, is excluding them indefinite?
It will take a long time, purely because what you end up doing is that you find a woman who took the vaccine, 6 months down the line, she realized, oh, I was pregnant when I took it. You look at the outcomes and nothing happened to her or the baby. As the data increases, you feel more confident. Because really with pregnancy, the effect on both the mother and the unborn child are key considerations before you give them anything. Even paracetamol in pregnancy is only given when you think the benefit is way better than the risk.
Wow. Some public sector officers in the Ashanti region are implementing a shift system to contain spread of COVID-19 at the workplace. Nanaya Ojima visited the office of Efija Kwabre South District to assess measures adapted to deal with the pandemic and has filed this report.
With the enforcement of the social distancing, hygiene and mask wearing protocol.
President Akufo-Addo in his last COVID-19 address encouraged officers to run shift systems as a measure to contain the spread of the disease at the workplace.
All workplaces, public and private, must employ a shift system for workers, in addition to the use of virtual platforms for business or work.
This after the call, some public sector players have started cutting down the number of staff reporting to their office. The staff population of the Efija Kwabre South District has been reduced to ensure social distancing protocols. The Client Service Department and the Office of the DCE Secretary have fewer staff to ensure social distancing. Christian Edupoku is District Chief Executive.
Had it not been this, and you come to this assembly, I'm telling you, you come and see the population, so huge. But because of the shift system, we have decided to, work around things so that some of the staff members will come 3 days and others will come 2 days. And when system, we have decided to, work around things so that some of the staff members will come 3 days and others will come 2 days. And when the next week, those who went for 2 days will come 3. That sort of, and it's working perfectly.
Here, COVID-19 safety protocols of hand washing and wearing of nose mask are strictly enforced.
If you don't have the nose mask, you don't wash your hands and sanitize your hands, which, as you can see, we have it in front of the office. You can enter. You can enter, and we are adhering strictly to that. I'm very sure the coming weeks, you will see us in action, mounting barriers and making sure that everyone wears the nose mask.
Congestion is, however, a challenge in basic schools within the local area. Education managers are authorized to make arrangements to reduce congestion in classrooms, but little has been achieved. The DC explains measures being adopted.
We've built a lot of schools, and some of them are near completion. And due to the situation at hand, we cannot allow the contractors to finish everything before we allow the students to go in. So we are in talks with the contractors to allow the students to go in whilst they work at it. And some of them have agreed. And very soon, we will go to the schools, and those that have higher numbers, we will make sure that we divide the students into 2.
Meanwhile, the District Education Directorate has taken delivery of hygiene materials to support schools in upholding COVID-19 safety protocols. For Joy News, Nanaya Ojima reporting.
The National Chairman of the Senior Staff Association, Zakaria Muhammad, says he's frustrated over what he claims to be unfair treatment of the senior staff by the government. He accused government of not paying Tier 2 pension contributions, deteriorating conditions of service, and unfair award of interim market premium and non-basic allowances.
In our candid opinion, the award of the interim market premium and non-basic allowance to a selected few within the university community and our comparators in the civil and local government services is unscientific and discriminatory. We therefore expect government to act fairly toward the Senior Staff Association of Public Universities in Ghana by extending the interim market premium to all members of our union without further delay. Unpaid Tier 2 pension contributions The scheme pays out a lump sum benefit to individuals upon retirement, which is comprised of contributions made under the scheme plus all returns earned on their contributions. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, are we not justified to say government is deliberately breaching the National Pension Act and frustrating the senior staff cadre of public universities in Ghana, especially our colleagues who went on retirement last year and those who are expected to go this year? It is sad to note that most of these people have served the universities and Mother Ghana wholeheartedly between 25 to 30 years and gone home with a meager amount of 3,000. Per the Labour Act, conditions of service of employees are expected to be renegotiated every 2 years. Since 2008, ladies and gentlemen, our conditions of service have not been reviewed.
Mr. Mohammed further threatened the Senior Staff Association will withdraw all essential services if government refuses to address their grievances.
As much as we regret the dire consequences of our strike action, including the closure of basic schools and laboratories in all public universities, we remain resolute in our quest to obtain justice for our rank and file. We wish to serve notice that we are unfazed by threats or directive to withhold our salaries. Rather than resorting to such draconian tactics, we entreat government to act fairly by addressing our grievances without further delay. For the avoidance of doubt, we shall withdraw all essential services such as security, fire service and hospital staff if further attempts are made to withhold our salaries.
We'll take a break on Joy News Prime. We'll bring you the second part of Business with Charles Aite.
Hello there, welcome to Business. Effective April 1 this year, all mobile money transactions on the platform of MTN will be carried out with identification cards, valid ID cards at that. Mobile telecom giant says that merchants are to demand the ID cards for all transactions at Momo agent points. Anita Sewa Ajuga interacted with some mobile money agents in Kumasi to get their views on this new directive. Here's more.
The move by the telecommunication giant is to reduce the spate of mobile money fraud. Accepted IDs include the Ghana card, driving license, passport, voter's ID, social security and national trust ID, and the national health insurance scheme card.
Each and every card or ID number has a unique number. So the ID number is going to help the mobile money operators, that's the MTN, to be able to track anyone who wants to indulge himself or herself in a fraudulent activity. It's going to help very well. So when you enter a number, your particulars, it will come on a computer. So they will know where you stay, your age, your name, I mean your everything. So the price is going to help.
The new development will help us trace fraudsters.
Like and I said, why did this? I bet my choice I do. I feel like empty and opposite to me choice. I bet my and performance is and I'm more like a talent of a full baby scanner. If I couldn't smile on the corner away because a yes, the campus and to save a bus answer or more a mistake from the choices or more that's what my social master. I said, the workshop be named Mobile May upon any I have to a mobile one. Because we move 50 people compared to April and say I was any planning provide the idea.
They should organize workshops for mobile money merchants so that we can deliberate on the new development. This means without a card, one would not be able to complete the process to either cash out or deposit money. But how do customers feel about the new development?
And I think it's a good initiative because it's going to put more security layer on the new the Momo system, and it's gonna help because the Momo fraud has been too much, and with the layer of the voter's ID, it will help. It will help, and you have to confirm your ID, so nobody can take anybody's phone without his or her prior notice to withdraw money.
It's good to use your ID card, and like to be on the safer side, I think you should use your ID card, because without the ID card now, some fraudsters are being able to hack into our accounts to withdraw some money. Yeah, so I think using the ID card is way much better.
ID card in the nyadi a bit aboa because after them Crawford do one the ebeshi mbotum ebeyira bebre ebeyira and after scroll on bokro no net no so.
He said, I don't think the introduction of the ID is a good move. We want them to maintain the old system.
Nti nyade abeboa. Said omoye maye na se obi treke wadwene na wamfi na onya onyi usikada said omoye na nti nkasa na abeboa.
Anita Sewa Ajoga reporting.
Now, Standard Bank, the parent company of Stanbic Bank, is forecasting a growth rate of 3.5% for Ghana this year. Now, this is below that of the International Monetary Fund, Moody's, as well as Fitch Solutions combined, which have all projected that more than 4% of gross domestic product for this year. Charles Nixon Yeboah looks at the report and has more.
The report also said the size of the Ghanaian economy will remain unchanged at $63 billion, approximately 421 billion cedis. According to Standard Bank, COVID-19 pandemic will undoubtedly affect economic growth meaningfully, whereas growth of 6 to 8% year-on-year in the next 2 to 3 years seemed reasonably before. 1% year-on-year growth now seems likely in 2020 with a recovery from this year onwards. The report also said consumer spending is now expected to grow at 2.5% year-on-year as against the previously expected 4.9%. It pointed out that over the medium term, improving economic and political conditions will bode well for Ghanaian consumers, although disposable income remains low with spending concentrated on essential items. However, enhancing access to loans should assist consumers while inflation is expected to be well managed. Despite Ghana being classified as one of the fastest growing economies, Standard Bank said this has yet to translate into improved living conditions for many Ghanaians. A large share of consumer goods are imported from South Africa, China, Europe, and the Middle East. Yet, due to the relatively small size of the modern retailers, the country remains dependent on small to medium-sized multi-brand importers that increases unit prices.
Well, despite the impact of COVID-19 on global economies, Ghana recorded a trade surplus of $2 billion in 2020. That's according to the data from the Bank of Ghana, of which we have more in this report.
This was equivalent to 3% of gross domestic product. That is total value of goods and services produced in an economy within a period. According to the Bank of Ghana's January summary of economic and financial data, total exports was estimated at $14.45 billion, whilst total imports was $12.43 billion. But comparing it to 2019, the country's trade balance was slightly higher at $2.2 billion. Though coronavirus pandemic had led to partial lockdowns and restrictions in most countries, the nation benefited from diversified exports last year as gold, oil, and cocoa raked in more revenue for the country. It subsequently impacted positively on the economy. For instance, gold and cocoa profited immensely from increased prices on the international market. Gold was the biggest export earner, bringing in more revenue of $6.7 billion, representing about 47% of total exports. Again, gold price shot up by 25.4% last year to reach $1,860.7 per ounce.
Well, let's now bring your attention to a developing story internationally. Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos will leave his post later this year, turning the helm over to the company's top cloud executive, Andy Jassy, who joined Amazon in 1997 and has led Amazon's web services cloud team since its inception. Now, Bezos says that he will stay engaged in important Amazon projects, but will also have more time to focus on the Bezos Earth Fund, his Blue Origin spaceship company, the Washington Post, and the Amazon Day One Fund as well. Now, CEO Jeff Bezos will leave his post later this year, turning the helm over to the company's top cloud executive, Andy Jassy, according to an announcement on Tuesday. Bezos will transition to executive chairman of Amazon's board. And that'll be it for business. I'm Charles Aite.
Thank you for staying with us on Joy News Prime. Second part of the sports, I'm Gary Al Smith. And ahead of the ongoing big games at the Total Chan tournament, we'll be getting a bit of reaction because there's a semi-final ongoing. But in the Ghana Premier League, Asante Kotoko have done the business. They've won 1-0 courtesy of that penalty I told you about in the first part against Inter Allies, who remain bottom of the Ghana Premier League. What the win means is that Kotoko go into the top 4. However, the bit that's trending on Twitter right now is the strict observance of social distancing by Asante Kotoko fans at the stadium. And you can find it on the Joy Sports Twitter feed. Let's take a look at it now. Yep, this is from the stadium. See how they are seated. Sharp contrast to what we saw at the weekend that trended when Olympics played Heart of Oak at the stadium as well. So this was during the game, and social distancing very much in evidence in the seating arrangement across the stadium. In fact, after the game, Asante Kotoko's official account thanked the supporters for being very obedient. And that's the sport for now. Thank you for your time. I'm Gary Al Smith. The news continues.
Welcome back to Joy News Prime. Earlier, I asked you to send your comments to our Facebook page as to what do you think about members of parliament testing positive and refusing to isolate. Let's check out what your comments are. I can see a number of them coming in. And you heard the Speaker of Parliament saying that if they refuse to do so, they will be forced to mention names. So Kwabna Benson says they are not serious. Rather than helping to fight the stigma, such actions only demonize the disease and encourage others not to own up to it, but rather keep it hidden, go about their duties, and enhance the spread of the virus. They should show leadership. Ejasiam Jr. says, all the media houses are aware of this, but they have kept quiet and don't organize talk shows on it. Yet they want everyone to believe that there's COVID-19 in Ghana and that everyone should observe all the protocols. Meanwhile, they themselves, the actions prove that there's no COVID-19 in the country. Robbie King Ahing, and I don't think I agree with you. There's been a lot of education out there. And first, think about yourself first, even before thinking about others. Think about your life. Protect your life. If you don't need yourself, I think your families need you. Robbie King Ahing says, can you imagine leaders by example? The battle is the Lord's. And Kudano Smart Nation says all they know is beating people mercilessly, all because of nose mask. But it's not the parliamentarians that beat you. And that'll be it for the bulletin tonight. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Many thanks for watching. Log on to myjoyonline.com for more news and all the updates. But stay on the Joy News channel because I'm coming right back with PM Express. Tonight, we're delving into a conversation about the upcoming vetting. The members of Parliament have given a date, or Parliament has set a date for the vetting. There are fallouts. What are those fallouts? How do we fix them as we have just a week to start the vetting of the nominees? Stay with me. I'm coming right back.